Welcome to our first flipped lesson for Chapter 6, Lesson 1. I'm calling this Expanding Our World, Prepositions that Take the Accusative. We're going to primarily be focusing on this idea of prepositions that take the accusative, but first we're going to do a little bit of a review about what prepositions are and some of the things that we've learned about prepositions in earlier chapters. So what are prepositions? Well, our basic way of understanding what prepositions are is to describe them as things that tell us about where stuff is. So for example, if something is on the table or under the table, near the table, far from the table, and so forth. Prepositions tell us where stuff is. So in this chapter, in previous chapters, we've learned a lot about prepositions. Prepositions that take the ablative case. So, for example, we learned about the preposition in. For example, in this sentence, Julia in horto est. Julia is in the garden. We also learned how to use the preposition ex. As in this sentence, Julia ex atrio discedit. Discedit, she leaves. So she leaves out of ex atrio. We've learned how to use the preposition cum, also with the ablative. Amelia cum liberis suis est. Amelia is with her children. And we also learned how to use the preposition sine, which is the opposite of cum. Amelia sine viro suo est. Amelia is without her man. We've also learned about the use of the preposition ab. Ab also goes with the ablative, but it has some special rules associated with it. These rules are pretty simple. They're simply this. When the preposition is used before a vowel, a, e, I, o, u, we use the form ab. But when the preposition is used before a consonant, we use the form a. Now that a is special, and I'm going to add that in here. It's special because it requires that we insert a macron on the top when it's used by itself. Okay, so we have a before consonants and ab before vowels. So let's see if you can make this choice yourself. If we have a sentence like this, Julia blank Amelia discedit, which form are we going to use? Are we going to use a? Or are we going to use ab? Well, because Amelia begins with a vowel. Amelia begins with a vowel. What we're going to do is we're going to use the form ab. Ab. Julia ab Amelia discedit. Let's try that again. Here's another sentence. Julia blank pueris discedit. Which form of the preposition are we going to use? Well, since pueris begins with a consonant, we're going to use the form a. Make that down a little further. A. Julia a pueris discedit. Now, in this chapter, we learn a completely new addition to the world of prepositions. We learn about prepositions that take the accusative case. Let's see what those are. Our first preposition that takes the accusative case is prope. Prope, which means near. So, in other words, Julius est prope sacus. Julius est prope sacus. Another preposition that takes the accusative is the preposition ad. Ad. So, in this case, we have Julius. Here's our friend Julius, and he's with his slaves, Cyrus, Leander, Davus, and Ursus. And Julius is going ad villam suam. Ad villam suam. In other words, to or toward. Ad villam suam. Another preposition that takes the accusative is circum. Circum. Circum sounds like circle, and it means exactly that. Circum means around. Around. So we have murus est circum oppidum. Inter, another preposition that takes the accusative. Inter means between. So we have our friend Medus. Medus is here. He's walking on the road. And Medus right now is in between Romam and Vilam Julii. Medus is inter Romam et Vilam. Another couple of prepositions that take the accusative are ante and post. Here we have our friends Julius and his slaves Ursus, Davus, Leander, and Cyrus. Ursus nunc est ante Julium. Cyrus est post Julium. We have another preposition that takes the accusative in this chapter. The preposition is apud. And here we would say, Marcus est apud sextum. And what we mean by that is that Marcus is together with Sextus. And apud, you'll notice, is a static form of with. We don't want to mix that up with cum, which is more of a dynamic form of with. In other words, Marcus cum sexto ambulat. You notice that he is with Sextus and he is walking with him, as opposed to here, he just is together with him. They're just sitting there together. They're kind of paired up, in other words. Finally, we have our preposition per. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to draw this for you here. And we're going to draw one square over here, and we'll draw another square over here. Okay. And then we will pretend that this arrow here is our friend Medus. And Medus is going to be walking per. If we imagine that this is a gate. This is our Porta Romana, Porta Capena, and we have Medus, and Medus is walking through the gate. Per portam ambulat Medus. Medus ambulat per portam. That concludes our presentation about prepositions that take the accusative. What we've done is we've reviewed the preposition we learned in previous chapters that go with the ablative. We've talked about how the preposition ab changes depending on if it's in front of a word that begins with a consonant or a vowel, and we've gone through all of the prepositions in this chapter that take the accusative. I hope you found that helpful.